So, I rewatched Sex and the City Season 2 and it took me exactly 4 evenings, and I regret nothing. The news is terrible, the days are now cold and short, and all I want to do is lie on a couch and rewatch my favorite TV shows. And Sex and the City never disappoints. It has brilliant writing, great chemistry between actresses, and fabulous fashion. In Season 2, Carrie, Miranda, Samantha, and Charlotte start to have actual character arcs, even though not all of them are solid, but the storylines are way funnier and grittier than in the previous season. Charlotte taking the ladies to a massage masterclass was hysterical. Miranda and her eye doctor were hilarious and awkward at the same time. And Samantha dating that geriatric billionaire made me spill my coffee laughing, although you have to applaud her openness and willingness to give this relationship a try. However, unlike Miss Samantha Jones, some scenes in Season 2 of Sex and the City haven't aged well, and I'm sorry to spoil the fun, but I have to talk about them too. And as always, this video will be full of spoilers for the entire show and for the reboots, so you have been warned. At the beginning of Season 2, we meet Carrie completely heartbroken over Big. She tries to move on by dating other guys and by figuring out how to keep Big in her life. This brings an interesting discussion about staying friends with your ex. My advice? Guys, just don't be like Carrie, okay? And actually learn from her mistakes. Because Carrie wasn't really over Big, so she rushed into a friendship with him. Her intentions weren't clear, she didn't want them to actually stay friends, so they randomly got back together. Big mistake. She really should have stayed single and fabulous exclamation mark. However, this season centers on Carrie struggling between her search for a great love and the desire to stay independent, which honestly is a great character arc, and her wrong choices made her extremely relatable. Sure, she was often incredibly immature and jumped to unfair conclusions, i.e., Big didn't sign a wedding card, so it means their relationship isn't important to him. Logical, but you can't help but sympathize with her trying to form a relationship with an unattainable man who has commitment issues, especially because they had good moments too, and Mr. Big oftentimes was actually charming, and other times he was cold and aloof. I said it before and I'll say it again, the older I get, the less I care about their messy and full of drama relationship, but this fight scene, this one always gets me. I really feel for Carrie. She finally realizes that she's not his priority, that he makes lifetime decisions without including her. It's heartbreaking, even though she acts like a total lunatic in this scene.
Oh, Carrie, this is Natasha.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you.
It is serious. We're engaged.
By the end of the season, Carrie finally comes to the terms that Big chose Natasha instead of her and she has to move on. And originally, Big and Natasha's engagement party was supposed to be the absolute end of Carrie and Big's relationship. He was supposed to be married and never return to the show. As in real life, Candace Bushnell's relationship with the former Vogue and GQ publisher, Ron Galati, who inspired Mr. Big's character, didn't end with a happy ending. And this SATC scene would be a perfectly satisfying ending to Carrie and Big's toxic on and off relationship. Carrie's bittersweet voiceover was perfect.
Maybe some women aren't meant to be tamed.
Her delivering that "the way we were" line was perfect.
Your girl is lovely, Hubble. Your girl is lovely, Hubble.
So why their storyline didn't end there, after all? Well, Darren Star, who created Sex and the City, said many times that for him, Carrie was supposed to end up single, and the show aimed to end with a conclusion that women don't need to be defined by men or by marriage. But somewhere around mid-season 3, I think, Michael Patrick King took over as the showrunner of SATC, and he simply had a different vision, which was less about female empowerment and more about creating a Hollywood-esque fairy tale, so now you know. And just to quickly circle back to this scene, every time I watch it, I can't help but empathize with Natasha. Just imagine being in her shoes. It's her engagement party, her big day. And instead of celebrating it with her future husband, she sees him with his ex-girlfriend who's caressing his cheek in a loving way and looks as if she were the bride. And I'm sorry, but Natasha is not a quote simple girl. She's classy and dignified and probably way more mature than Carrie. Amen. The season 2 Samantha is pretty much her fabulous self. Out of all ladies, she has the most uninhibited, free-spirited approach to sex, and she's having a great time exploring it. And we love her for it. Samantha is smart, confident, and isn't afraid to be who she is. Plus, in season 2, she has by far the wittiest one-liners from the entire group. Sorry, Miranda, you were good. I'm waiting for you to be great. At the beginning of the season, Samantha still dates James and his mini gherkin, and did you know that Michael Patrick King took the storyline of Samantha meeting James at a jazz club in season 1 from Kim Cattrall's real life, as this is how she and her then husband met. Love that! The scene where Samantha teaches James how to be a good lover is one of the most hysterically funny scenes in the entire show, especially knowing that Kim Cattrall and her ex-husband Mark Levinson published a sex guidebook back in 2001. However, I really like moments when we see Samantha at her work, at the gym, or at the party she organized. Obviously, her character brings the most politically incorrect and spicy scenes in the show, but it's nice to see her as a more complex character. I like to think that she's more than just a great-looking woman looking for fun. And season 2 starts to explore on Samantha's emotions. Firstly, we had that salsa club owner, the wee guy, if you will, who stood her up and really hurt her feelings, and then her ex, who previously broke her heart. And speaking about him, season 2 kickstarts the most absurd yet perfect universe crossover in TV history, at least according to me, which is Sex and the City crossed with the original Gossip Girl. And if you haven't watched Gossip Girl, well, buckle up because the next segment might get confusing. So, Samantha's ex, I believe in SATC his name is Dominic, but we aren't calling him that because this is Harold, and I feel like his name tells a lot about his personality, and not in a good way. In the world of Gossip Girl, where almost every storyline is truly bizarre and outrageous, Harold is the least problematic person. He's Blair's lovable dad who lives in a chateau in Lyon with his gorgeous boyfriend. And by the way, this is his gorgeous boyfriend. Before moving to France, he was selling the I Never Say Fabulous Prada shirts, and now he's back in the US, owns a club, and dates Seema. In one of the episodes of Every Outfit on Sex and the City podcast, which I'm a huge fan of, Lauren and Chelsea noticed that Samantha always sleeps with the same guy, and oh my god, what a genius observation. I swear to god, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So knowing that Samantha definitely had a thing for muscular men with sharp jawlines, it literally makes no sense that Blair's dad was the one to break her heart. And not once, but twice. And by the way, I am perfectly aware that those are character actors and it's their job to play small roles in TV shows. And it might be possible that you know them from different roles than I do. I just like the idea of different shows coexisting in the same universe. Okay. And when you thought I was done, just wait to see with who Miranda sleeps in season 4. Yeah, it always cracks me up when she's wondering whether she should tell him about her having a baby, and I'm like, hello, Miss Miranda, he has a son too. Chuck must be 11 at this point. Season 2 establishes that Miranda is a ride-or-die Carrie's friend, yet she herself can't always count on Carrie. Sometimes she can, but not always, which is sad yet relatable. After all, who hasn't been in a one-sided friendship before? What's not so relatable about Miranda is her buying an apartment in Manhattan at the age of 33. At least from my sad millennial perspective, it's not that accessible. But I have a question, and please don't laugh if that's obvious, I genuinely don't know. Was back then a famous article, a book, or a crime case where a single woman died and was found half-eaten by her pet? Because when Miranda moved to her new apartment, she learned about that previous tenant who died there alone, was found there after a couple of days, and her face was half eaten by her cat. And a similar storyline was said in the 2001 Bridget Jones's Diary. So what's that all about? It's too big of a coincidence. Luckily, this doesn't seem to be Miranda's future, as after a couple of bad dates, she meets Steve, after Carrie stood her up. And I have to be honest with you, I really didn't get Steve the first time I watched Sex and the City when it aired. Literally everyone unsubscribes, but what do you want me to say? He wasn't as good looking as Chris North, and I was a tween back then. A weird tween, might I add, who watched Sex and the City and Twin Peaks. And yeah, I didn't understand even the half of the things they talked about, and sex scenes made me incredibly uncomfortable. I just watched it for the fashion, so no, I didn't vibe with Steve back then. However, now I'm older and wiser, I fully appreciate Steve. I can even forgive him not liking Fiona Apple. In fact, I wish you all from the bottom of my heart to have a person in your life that will just give you a call without a hidden agenda and tell you to look at the moon. Now that's a soulmate. Plus, Miranda and Steve have a great chemistry together from the start, and I refuse to believe they never loved each other. Yes, I'm looking at you. And just like that. I really liked how the show explored their incompatibility and Steve being uncomfortable with Miranda's financial success. The tension between them having different incomes really escalated over Steve's suit. And I'm sorry, but if this episode was shot in the early 2010s, Steve's gold corduroy suit would be goals. It's very much giving that 2010s British dandy trend, plus it shows personality. But I guess in this fashion-forward show, only women and gay men can dress flamboyantly, so Miranda dresses him in this boring finance bro suit, and so they break up. But yay, they are reunited in the last episode, which sure was a cute moment, but if you think about it, they essentially ended up in the same place where they started. They still have different lifestyles. She needs to get up in the morning for work. He wants to cuddle because he works at night, and it makes me excited to see where season 3 will take them. Charlotte's character arc in season 2 is going out with as many horrible men as possible. The guy who wouldn't stop grabbing his stuff and the wedding guy were equally awful. The guy who cheated on her gave her the phoniest excuse ever.
You don't understand. She's an old friend of my sister's from college. She just moved to the city and her uncle died last month and I was just trying to be supportive.
The movie star didn't even care to remember her name, and the 20-something guy gave her craps. Yikes. But unlike Miranda, who starts the season with equally bad dates but eventually meets kind and lovable Steve, Charlotte ends season 2 without a romantic partner, which I'm sure was a deliberate decision, and it sets the scene for her meeting Trey in season 3. As you see, the bar gets lower and lower for her, so when she finally met someone who seemed to be exactly what she wanted, her Prince Charming, if you will, she jumped into marriage without taking enough time to get to know him well. But I am getting ahead of myself. I know that Charlotte is a very polarizing character, as her views on gender roles and relationships are traditional and rigid. And don't get me wrong, I love her fashion style and her Dyson Airwrap blowouts, but there were plenty of moments when I was cringing at what she had to say. As the show progresses, Carrie becomes insufferable. Charlotte, on the other hand, changes for the better, but we're not there yet. The fashion in season 2 hits that sweet spot for me where the show already was pretty successful and had a nice budget for designer outfits, yet the product placement wasn't yet as prevalent as it was in later seasons. Carrie is still pretty much the fashionista of the group, unlike in both films where all the ladies were basically lounging in couture. But here Carrie wears major designer pieces almost exclusively where there is either an occasion for it or something important happens in her life. For example, she wore the princessy Donna Karan Spring-Summer 1999 dress as a wedding guest, the Spring-Summer 1996 Jean-Paul Gaultier dress when she had a serious fight with Mr. Big, and the iconic white Dior dress when she was finally letting him go.
At one time, this was the most expensive dress we ever bought her. It was in the window at Dior, and Pat said, I want that dress for her.
However, when Carrie was at home and heartbroken over Big, we saw her in basics and quirky t-shirts. I really liked that the heartbroken Carrie was also experimenting with her hairstyle. At the beginning of the season, she seemed to be in her 70s hippie braid era, which I guess was her way of cutting or dyeing her hair after the breakup. And when it comes to the infamous Judith Leiber bag, I feel like Patricia Field must have had some personal beef with this brand or something, because the storyline makes no sense and someone like Carrie would live for this bag. Charlotte had a couple of good fashion moments, but I'd like to discuss this gown. Don't you guys think that we've been slightly gaslit by the show to believe that this is an incredibly slutty look, when in reality it's just an elegant, backless black dress? Casino Charlotte. Now that's slutty. Miranda's style gets a little update in season 2, but I have to admit some of her looks were a pass for me, and I can't wait for the next season and her oversized coats and cheap dresses. And when it comes to Samantha, over the course of the season she goes from basically re-wearing her season 1 looks like this lavender dress to dressing in her iconic power suits and minimalistic dresses. She absolutely steals every scene in the Hamptons episode, plus I absolutely adore her sunglasses. Whenever I criticize Sex and the City, I always feel like I have to somehow explain myself and really put an emphasis on the fact that I genuinely love this show, which I do. But I think it's important and necessary to call out problematic storylines and dated ideas, so that maybe they won't be repeated in the future. In the episode The Cheating Curve, Charlotte meets a group of rich, powerful women who collect art. Eileen works at Wall Street and Lydia is a VP at Warner Brothers, but it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do or what kind of people they are, because according to Carrie's voiceover, their only defining characteristic is their sexual orientation.
The Power Lesbian. Power Lesbians.
But the worst thing is that Charlotte's major motivation to hang out with them is that they simply don't talk about men, unlike her regular friend group.
How does it happen that 4 such smart women have nothing to talk about but boyfriends?
And while I'm glad that the show at least agrees on the fact that people of different sexual orientations can be friends, it is pretty obvious that Charlotte is leading Lydia on without any regard for her feelings. And it's all because in season 2, Charlotte has been on far too many bad dates, as we discussed earlier, and it's nice for her to forget about her personal struggles. Evolution is another episode with a problematic storyline. Charlotte meets a friend who she assumed was gay, yet he kissed her goodbye. Confused Charlotte discovers that her date knows lyrics to share songs and cooks Martha Stewart recipes, which in the SATC universe can only mean one thing: this guy is certainly not straight because only gay men listen to Cher. Duh. It also leads to the whole "is he a quote straight gay man or a gay straight man" debacle. The whole premise of this storyline was to perpetuate a stereotype that there is an obvious link between one's sexual orientation and their hobbies and interests. Yikes. In the 9th episode, which centers around the question can one change their romantic partner, Samantha accidentally meets her old boyfriend, Brad, who became a drag queen and based his drag persona on Samantha. Samantha, while slightly shocked, continued a pleasant conversation with Brad, asked about his kids, to which Carrie commented,
Jake has 2 mommies.
gross and disgusting, but it's not even the worst thing that happened in season 2, because the episode entitled The Caste System is on another level of embarrassment. So Samantha dates a super rich guy who has a full-time domestic worker named Sam, or as this show insists on calling this Asian woman, a servant. Sam cooks fabulous meals, keeps the entire house pristine and clean, and is probably terribly busy and tired, yet she looks like a model. She always has her makeup done, hair done, everything. But the show, instead of empathizing with her difficult life, portrays her as a two-faced villain who has her employer wrapped around a little finger.
It was then Samantha realized she wasn't so dim, that Sam.
The former dazed editor-at-large Sean Fay writes, "The pan is as woeful as it is racist, and it typifies many examples of the ways in which the show uncritically rejoiced in the prejudices of the affluent straight white women at its core." What's really confusing about season 2 of Sex and the City is that along those major cringy storylines I just discussed, there were many forward-thinking moments too.
The new millennium won't be about sexual labels, it'll be about sexual expression. It won't matter if you're sleeping with men or women. It'll be about sleeping with individuals. Soon everyone will be pansexual.
Mic drop. This makes season 2 pretty inconsistent, and I have to agree it's not my favorite. However, I appreciate that the ladies start to have character arcs and that the first and last episodes are nicely connected. Like in the first episodes, Miranda expresses how exhausted and fed up she is with all the men talk, and the season ends with one of the best cinephile discussions in TV history. Miranda herself starts this season by running away from her ex, and she does the exact same thing to Steve when she meets him after their breakup, but this time around she is confronting him and they end up getting back together. Carrie and Big's relationship comes to a full circle. Samantha goes from dating James and his mini gherkin to Mr. Too Big in season finale, and Charlotte goes from dating awful guys to getting back in the saddle and believing she will find her Prince Charming. And that would be all. Let me know what you think about season 2, and yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
You know, for a sex columnist, you have a very limited view of sexuality.